Hi everyone, these are anatomy and physiology videos for healthcare students. In this video, we'll be discussing chemical reactions. So we need a little background information in order to understand how chemical reactions work. And so atoms and molecules are often discussed in chemical reactions. Atoms are the building blocks of all matter, and elements are composed of the same kinds of atoms. So when we're thinking about the symbols shown at right, looking at hydrogen, for instance, sometimes you may see a little subscript to the right of the letter, and sometimes you may see a big coefficient in the front on the left side. So if we're looking at, say, the little subscript on the right side, that is showing us that there are two atoms chemically bonded together. Or on the left side as a coefficient, we may be looking at molecules. That tells us there are two water molecules. So we need to be able to interpret these kinds of symbols to understand what's happening when we look at chemical reactions. We also need to understand two terms, reactants versus products. Reactants will be chemicals entering into a chemical reaction. They will be the ones changed by the reaction. The products are the results of the chemical reaction. So when we talk about these two terms, you'll have a grasp on what's entering versus what is exiting the chemical reaction. So just like baking a cake, the ingredients are our reactants, and the actual cake itself are the product. That's what we result from having run this chemical reaction in our oven. One more set of terms we need to understand are monomers and polymers. Mono as a prefix means one or single. This is a single or a simple unit. This is a building block, especially when we're talking about organic molecules in the human body. Polymers, poly as a prefix means many. Technically, it's more than, two. So we're looking at complex or larger molecules. Some can be even big, huge. We might call them macromolecules. So polymer is multiple building blocks linked together or bonded together, and monomers are single units. So just like if you're going to build a house from bricks, a single brick is your monomer. You may say, hey, I need 500 bricks to build this structure, 2,000 bricks to build this structure. Once you start putting them together, then you now have a polymer. They are bound together through the structure that you're building. All right, so now we're ready to talk about some chemical reactions. Our first term is metabolism, which is actually all the chemical reactions that occur in your body. And we often break that down into two separate types, anabolism or anabolic reactions, and catabolism, which are hydrolysis or breakdown reactions. So anabolism oftentimes removes water from the reactants to create a polymer. So dehydration means removal of water. Synthesis means to make. So anytime we're doing these building reactions, especially for the human body where we're building molecules, we will be dehydrating or removing water from the monomers to join them together and create a polymer or to synthesize the polymer. Just keep in mind, dehydration synthesis tells you great clues about what's happening in this reaction. I also remember this. Anabolic steroids are used to bulk up the body. People may take them to build muscle, and you might think of testosterone here as an anabolic steroid. So anabolic reactions build molecules called polymers. So the opposite kind of reaction is a catabolic reaction. That's breaking down. You always have to maintain your home. That means cleaning inside. That means maintaining repairs around the outside. So catabolic reactions are constantly happening. This is the second law of thermodynamics. It's entropy that we're always fighting. So in our bodies, we purposely perform some of these catabolic reactions, and that helps us break down polymers or foods that we eat into monomers or building blocks. Cata means to break down. And then if you think about the other term there, hydrolysis, hydro is water, Lysis is to split, rupture, or break down. So we actually use water to break down these polymers into our building blocks or monomers. And in these kinds of reactions, energy is released. So this is one of the reasons why we should drink a certain amount of fluids per day. It is to assist us with breaking down our polymers into monomers. Without having that water input into our bodies, we would have to pull it from our interstitial space or even our cells. So let's run through an example of an anabolic reaction. I'm going to use letters such as A, B, and C to represent our building blocks or monomers. So for the anabolic reaction, let's join A and another monomer called B with another monomer, C. This yield symbol means that we're going to create the products joined together, A, B, and C. The little lines between those represent chemical bonds. That helps me recognize that this is a polymer that's produced as a result of joining monomers A, B, and C together. So in this reaction, in order to join monomers to make polymers, I have to remove water or dehydrate water from those monomers. So dehydrate to synthesize or build a polymer. Let's take this polymer, ABC. Let's say we're losing weight. So to break down the fatty molecules, we have to add water to break apart the bonds held together between A and B, B and C. This yield symbol means that we're going to create our products now, and we've separated monomer A from B from C. So we've broken apart that polymer and created monomers. This is an example of a catabolic reaction. I know there's a lot going on here. This is using an enzyme, but we're going to zero in and look at that substrate. You'll notice on the products, the far right side of this chemical reaction, we've created two. So we've broken apart one into two. That's a breakdown reaction. When water is added, we could call this a hydrolysis reaction. This is an anabolic reaction. So again, look at those substrates, see what's happening to them. It looks like in the letter A picture, they are separate as substrate 1 and 2, but we end up joining them together to create a product. And so this product here, that is actually a polymer. So we've joined monomers to create a polymer. And in doing so, we've dehydrated the substrates to join or synthesize that polymer. So we think about what we do all the time in terms of anabolic and catabolic reactions when we do science like biology or anatomy and phys. Building a new wall would be an anabolic reaction or a dehydration synthesis reaction, whereas crumbling ruins where they're being broken down, rain falls on these ruins, it helps to break the bonds between those original mortars, and that is a catabolic or a hydrolysis reaction. We do the same thing every time we're working in the kitchen. If you soak dirty dishes in the sink for the food to loosen overnight, you're waiting on water to catabolize or break apart the bonds. It's a hydrolysis reaction. Or if you're waiting for a cake to bake in the oven, you're waiting for the water to be removed from that sloshy, wet mixture, dry it out some, and then what you remove then is a dehydrated cake. If you leave it too long, it really does become drier and drier. So we do things all the time without realizing we're actually working with hydrolysis or dehydration synthesis reactions. So let's get more into the details of how these work. So on the top, you'll notice a dehydration synthesis reaction removes the water from the two monomers. The removal of water is why we call this dehydration. The synthesis part comes from joining together the monomers linked by bonds to create a polymer. We run the reaction in reverse when we're doing a hydrolysis or a breakdown reaction. This time, notice that we want to break the bond between the two monomers, so we add water, Water helps us to split apart or break apart those polymers into monomers. So these are just another way to think about what we've been discussing, building through synthesis, breaking down through hydrolysis. So there's a lot happening on this screen. One of the first things that I'm drawn to is the addition of water as a reactant. You'll notice that water is going to help us break apart our polymer on the left side into two monomers on the right side. That is what type of reaction? That is hydrolysis or a catabolic reaction. So we're using that water to split apart the polymer into monomers. Let's look at another one. This one doesn't have water drawn in, but it is playing a role here. It's highlighted in red at the very top. So in this reaction, we're taking glucose and fructose, two sugar molecules, and we're joining them to create sucrose. You'll notice that now there is a bond that exists between the two monomers. That glycosidic bond means that we have added the two together. So what do you think this one is? Dehydration or hydrolysis? Since we've removed water to join or build a more complex molecule, this one is a dehydration synthesis reaction. We removed water from the reactants to join them and create a more complex result, which is our polymer. All right, switching gears. One last type of reaction here is called an exchange reaction. In these reactions, we are going to break apart bonds and we'll also create new bonds to assemble in a different arrangement. So let's take a look at an example. So I'm going to use letters again to illustrate our components. So if we have AB joining with CD, we can just rearrange that into A with D and B with C. It just reminds me of square dancing. They always say swing your partners. And so you'll exchange. That's what's happening here. We're just exchanging through breaking bonds and then creating new bonds between those partners. This is another simple form of an exchange reaction. This time we're going to kick off B and we're going to replace it with C, just another type of exchange reaction. So some ways to think about what we've been doing. You can play with words. So to build the word anatomy, you use two word roots, Anna and Tomi, to create the word anatomy. That's an anabolic or a building reaction. And you can do the same thing by breaking it down. Just take the word and break it into its word parts. That is catabolism or catabolism. And then finally, if you just rearrange words such as osteoblast and chondrocyte, switching apart those word roots, you can create an exchange reaction. Same thing with a chocolate milkshake. You can create chocolate milk in a shake just by rearranging those word roots. This kind of content is best reviewed by going back through examples, looking specifically at how these examples illustrate the kinds of reactions we've been working. I hope this video helped you understand catabolic, anabolic, and exchange reactions. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments for me. So thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, please follow my channel.